Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by the Colorado chapter of HFMA. Today's webinar will offer a sneak preview of a few sessions that you'll find at the Fall Summit hosted by the Colorado chapter on September 26th. I'd like to welcome today's guest presenters. I'm pleased to introduce not one or two, but three subject matter experts who will also be presenting at the HFMA Colorado Fall Summit. Each presenter will share an overview of the topic that they will present during the upcoming conference. I am pleased to welcome Seth Avery. Seth has with AppRev. Seth has over 25 years of experience as a healthcare executive serving as auditor, consultant, administrator, and chief financial officer. Mr. Avery has served as the CFO for a major teaching hospital in Texas and as the executive director of a leading New Jersey medical school. I'm also pleased to welcome Tom Rennell of Colorado Hospital Association. Tom is Senior VP of Financial Policy and Data Analytics for the Colorado Hospital Association. Prior to this role, Tom served 12 years with Kaiser Permanente as their executive director of finance. Tom also had a finance role at the University of Michigan Healthcare, and prior to that worked with Ernst & Young. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Alan Nalle of PatientCo. As Chief Strategy Officer, Alan is chartered to help ensure PatientCo creates unique value for its clients. He brings over 15 years of financial and corporate strategy business experience from a successful startup and corporate entities. But at this time, I'm going to turn the call over to Chad Kirchhoff, who is president of the Colorado chapter, who will offer a brief highlight of the Fall Summit. Chad, please go ahead.
Thank you, Nikki. And good afternoon to everybody that is able to join us today. We wanted to use this webinar today to kind of highlight our upcoming Fall Summit and kind of give you three great webinars in one. So give you a chance to hear about three really great sessions that are going to be occurring at our Fall Summit that will happen September 26th and 27th at the Park Meadows Marriott in Lone Tree. So we wanted to just give you some snippets of the great educational events that will be occurring there. So we have three great presenters here today that will kind of take us through what they're going to be talking a little bit more in depth at the conference. But wanted to let everybody know some of the highlights of the conference that are going to be going on. I think we planned a really exciting educational and networking event that will be happening over a day and a half time frame. We're lucky to have Joe Pfeiffer, the HFMA Association's president and CFO, join us for our keynote address on consumerism. And then he's also going to moderate a CFO panel that day. And we have some great CFOs that will be joining us to talk about some of the financial issues at the hospitals and healthcare today that they're tackling and what they're doing to be successful in tackling those. Then we're going to continue the event with some really, really great sessions. And we're going to have some really great things that I'd like to highlight. We're also going to be having a revenue cycle panel on Friday that will be moderated by Pilar, and she'll be joined by panelists of revenue cycle leaders, and they'll be talking about some of the things in the revenue cycle that are pressing in the industry. We've got a really neat thing occurring with early careerists. We're doing an early careerist boot camp. We're actually trying to build into the event some education for them to kind of understand what HFMA is, what HFMA can do for their career, and some of the hot topics in healthcare right now. So that'll be occurring on Thursday. We're bringing in a really great session that will be presented by our Women in Leadership panel on how to grow leaders through coaching and mentorship. So I think that will be a really great leadership session for folks to attend. We've also bought back by popular demand peer-to-peer roundtables. So we're giving people a chance to just kind of sit across from their peers and talk about hot topics in the industry and how they're being handled at their hospitals. So we're going to be doing a senior financial executive peer-to-peer roundtable. and we're going to be doing a revenue cycle leader peer-to-peer roundtable. So that's something that we've had done years ago, and we're bringing that back now by popular demand by our financial executives and revenue cycle folks. I think that will be a really exciting thing at the event. And then in addition to all of the great educational sessions that we have, we've planned a really neat networking event that will be happening on the first day after all of our educational sessions. And we've geared this around our HFMA's Chairman of the Board Association's theme this year, which is Dare You to Move. So we've kind of put together a networking event that kind of challenges our attendees to step out of their comfort zone and do something that maybe they don't normally do. And we're going to have a photo booth on site, and we're challenging them to get a group of folks together and take the best, most outrageous, exciting photo, or if they would like to kind of step out of their box a little further and show a hidden talent on open mic. So we've got that photo booth and the open mic, along with, you know, appetizers and drinks, and just a really great chance to network with your peers. And then at the end of the night, there will be some really great prizes that will be awarded for those that really wowed the crowd on how they stepped out of their comfort zone. So, you know, those are some really great things that are going on at the Fall Summit. Again, that's September 26th and 27th at the Park Meadows Marriott in Lone Tree. So that's the highlight of the conference. I'm going to turn it over now to our presenters to kind of give you highlights of their presentations that they'll be given more in-depth presentations on at the conference. So I'll turn it over now to Seth.
Hey, Chad, that was a great introduction. I would note in your introduction and painting the conference that Pilar now is so famous that she only has a first name. She's like the Cher of Colorado HFMA. So that's good to know. And I'm sure that's going to be a great session, and I look forward to it. I do appreciate everybody taking a few minutes of their day today to hear a little bit about the conference and some of the education that will be presented there. And I have just to let you know, over the years I have done presentations on hospital pricing strategies. This topic has become increasingly important and controversial in hospitals. And I had a pretty good presentation that I'd been doing for a while, adding to it, refining it a little bit with the help of customers. And then it kind of blew up on me when the proposed rule came out. For those of you who have not seen it, read it, or read snippets of it, one of the things that we're going to cover in this, and if you would advance to slide one, we'll get into some of that. So this new proposed rule, and you're going to get different opinions from you know, HFMA has written about this from the home office, American Hospital Association. A lot of people looked at this proposed rule. You know, it's hard to imagine that this proposed rule that we're going to talk about in our session is going to live through to a final rule. There's not going to be some serious revisions to it. And in our session, we'll get into what does the proposed rule talk about? What is it asking hospitals, asking is probably the wrong word. What is it requiring hospitals to do in making their pricing available in a meaningful way for patients? And one of these things that in the proposed rule, it doesn't even refer to patients as patients. It refers to them as customers. So I think that's an interesting, I guess, opening into the mind of the CMS staff that are writing these rules. So we're going to talk about shoppable services, what that means, what it doesn't mean, all the definitions included in the rule. And I think we'll probably spend a good, 10 to 15 minutes on the proposed rule. And I'm going to point out some of the flaws in it, and that I think will keep it from going forward in its current presentation. So I know there's a lot of angst. I hear from customers today already about how to respond to it. And I think we're going to see pretty quickly how that all plays out with that. So we'll cover the proposed rule. We'll talk a little bit about things like surprise billing, which was a hot topic, but is not even addressed in this new proposed rule. And for those of you who have not become familiar with the proposed rule, it requires hospitals to publish, or proposes to require hospitals to publish all of their negotiated rates. And you can imagine the consternation that is causing across the industry. And again, we'll talk about how it works, it doesn't work. If you want to get a little background information on this, if you look me up on LinkedIn, I just recently posted a couple of 1,000-word blog on the new rule, what's in it, what's not in it, and some of the flaws in it. I think I titled the blog "Payment Terms." CMS should understand that payment terms is just as important as prices, which is one of the serious flaws of this approach that they're taking. So if you want a little background reading for the session, take a look at that blog and come prepared with your questions, thoughts, and I look forward to hearing from everyone as to how they see this playing out and how they plan to respond to it. Okay, so can we go on to the next slide here? The next thing we're going to talk about in this session is I'm going to give you an update on our analysis of the last pricing transparency rule, which came into place in January 1. We, at our company, AppRev, invested a fair amount of time in going out and looking at, shockingly, 2,200 different hospital websites, or websites that represented 2,200 hospitals. That's probably a more accurate way to say it. And looking at how people responded to the current rule on publishing your standard charges, as they were referred to in the rule, and what people did do, what they didn't do. So I've got some great stats on that, some great examples of how that worked. And by and large, people complied with it. Some people made it very difficult to get to the pricing information. To let you know, in the proposed rule, it very and I do believe this will survive in the new rule. The proposed rule for this year, for this upcoming year, has a lot of language in it that makes it very specific about some of the gimmicks that we're going to talk about that hospitals use to essentially comply with the rule, but make the information either hard to get to or not meaningful. So that was addressed in the new rule also. And we're going to go through, again, some of those stats and how everything worked and didn't work with that on the current state. All right, on the next, can we go to the next slide? And then we're going to spend the bulk of the session from there on out talking about how hospitals develop pricing strategies. So what are their objectives, which their objectives have been changing over the years. I've been doing this. I started my company about 15 years ago. I've been helping hospitals develop pricing strategies throughout that whole time. And it is truly amazing how the objectives have changed over that time. Now people are much more sensitive to the prices and less interested in generating net revenue out of that. We're going to talk about if you want to develop a pricing strategy and you want to know what the outcome of that pricing strategy is, we're going to get into what are the data requirements. We're going to go through examples of the necessary calculations. I've got 4 or 5 slides I'll go through with you on essentially model build, step by step on how you build a pricing model and how you try to figure out how that model is going to support your objectives. And we'll get into some of those techniques, such as the optimization and some of the issues that you have to account for, such as stop loss, lesser of, and having your and we see this quite often, and having your prices rationally related to each other. That you don't do an optimization model and then turn around and have a 2-view X-ray of the ankle be priced at less than a 1 view. So we'll go through a lot of those different points of the strategy and how we build it. And if we have time, I'll go through a case study that I presented with one of my customers a few times. If not, it'll be in the slides that you get, and you can review it at your own time. That's just driven by time. That, I think, is, Nikki, that was my last slide, right? Oh yeah, the hospital study. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. But if you have questions about what's going to be presented or not presented, or if you have any ideas or questions that you would like addressed in that presentation, fire them away, and we'll do our best to get that addressed for you. So that's all I have for you today, and I look forward to your questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Seth. All right, Tom, you're up next.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Welcome, everyone. Pleasure to be able to spend a few minutes with you here. I'm not going to go through all these slides in detail because you'll actually see them at the conference. Let's go ahead and skip ahead 2 slides that I think, the next one, that can really put some context on what the discussion is going to be and where we hope to take this. Clearly, the political environment right now in Colorado is hot. It's hot on a lot of fronts, healthcare in particular. You can just see by some of the quotes here that it's a major area of focus for the governor and the legislator here in Colorado. It was in 2019, and we expect that to continue in 2020. Some things that I want to cover during the session. We'll talk about some of the bills that were passed in 19, a few things that you might want to be on the lookout for as these become implemented. Most of them going into effect here in early 2020, so there's some things to keep your eye on. Also want to pull out of the political landscape for a minute and put a little context behind the state of healthcare and healthcare financing in Colorado. So I'll bring a few more slides in to just put into perspective where our healthcare dollars are being spent here in Colorado, how we're doing compared nationally and with some of our trends, because I think there's a perspective in there that's important for people to know, regardless of what's going on in our political environment right now. And then we can skip ahead here. Next slide. Yeah, that's we don't need to talk through that one. Go to the last one. This is the last one. I think we'll just I'll kind of wrap it up with saying that, you know, it was a hot session in 2019 with a lot of bills that were introduced and passed across all industries, in particular in healthcare as well. And again, we're expecting that to continue into 2020 with some pretty heavy focus. So we'll cover some of that as well. That's really all I wanted to cover today. It's just a little teaser for what you'll see here in a couple of weeks. Happy to take any comments or feedback, you know, in the Q&A session, or you can reach out to me individually. That's all I got, Nikki.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Tom.
Good afternoon, everyone. PatientCo. We're going to share, you can see the title of our presentation on the left, 4 ways to quantify a better patient financial experience and how to improve it. We believe that it's really important, if you're listening to our point of view, you know a little bit about us. That's some of the items on the right-hand side. And we're going to share some of the data and the payments insights that are generated by 16 million unique patients and more than $5 billion of billed patient balances. That's for both self-pay after insurance as well as straight self-pay. And we're going to share some real insights around what we're seeing relative to patient payment trends, how the patients perceive the financial experience, and also, you know, what are health systems doing to try and improve the financial experience. Let's go to the next slide. So the 4 metrics we're going to focus on in our session, you can see them on the left. It's digital. That's a digital experience. It's convenient. It's where the patients want to be met. We're going to really break apart what a patient means when they say digital. Is that chat? Is it email? Is it text? We're going to look at how they use member portals. What are they logging on to the portals for? We're also going to look and examine how are health systems choosing to engage and make investments or pilot on digital opportunities. We're going to dig in on personal. we're going to examine just how patients perceive personalizing the communication as building trust, and how that influences how they're interacting with health systems. Because you're not only trying to give a good experience so they return for the next visit, you're also trying to give a good experience so you create more cash collections for your health system and for the communities that you serve. We're going to dig in on affordability. This is preaching to the choir here. Plan design and health insurance products have shifted more and more of the cost to the patient, and that's created a burden for our health systems servicing our communities throughout the country. We're going to really dig in on not only what affordability looks like to the patient, but also how they want to enroll or engage to understand those affordability options, and what your peer health systems are doing to address affordability. And lastly, we're going to dig in on simple. We're also going to bring metrics. So after looking at how patients perceive it, how health systems are choosing to tackle it, we're also going to share a little bit about some of our approaches that we've used and some of the, some of our successes and or lessons learned. Let's go to the final slide. It's meant to be a teaser, so hopefully it kind of gets people excited. So this should give you a sense of it. We're going to share survey data unfiltered from many hundreds of patients, and a statistically relevant sample of large enterprise health systems across the United States. We're going to examine sources of calls associated with billing questions, to just what does digital communication look like. We're also going to dig in on where health systems are choosing to pilot digital capabilities, and affordability. And we're going to really dig in on what that looks like, where the balance breaks are, and implications for your system, and how, hopefully we'll share some lessons learned that you can take away something useful to either try, pilot, test, or give you something, practical that you can use within your organization. So there you have it. That's PatientCo, ways to improve the patient financial experience. 4 measures that matter.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much for that, Alan. Thank you for all of our presenters for sharing a snippet of the Fall Summit presentation with our audience today. So if you have any questions for either of the presenters, or looking for clarification about the remaining of the presentation, feel free to type that into the questions chat panel located to the right of your screen. I will answer the questions about slides. You can absolutely access those right away in the handouts panel located to the right of your screen. So as we keep an eye out for any incoming questions, just a quick note or reminder, I wanted to take this time to let you know that there is still time to sign up for the HFMA Fall Summit, scheduled for September 26th and 27th at the Denver Marriott South at Park Meadows. I believe, Chad, correct me if I'm wrong, there are still a few sponsorship opportunities available for those of you who are also looking to gain that visibility for the with the audience. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely, Nikki. There are certainly that sponsorship opportunity. So if you're a business partner and would like to do that, just contact us, and we can get you more information on that.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for that. So it doesn't look like any particular questions have, any topical questions have come in. So as you exit, you will be prompted with a survey, and we'd appreciate you sharing your feedback about today's event, as well as what kind of topics you're looking for in future webinars. Thank you again to our guest presenters from PatientCo, AppRev, as well as the Colorado Hospital Association. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking time to craft your presentation and presenting it to our audience today.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you. All right, everyone. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Have a good day, everyone.